What is a highly sensitive person? Part 1 by Elizabeth Scott, PhD, uploaded to Verywell Mind on November 7, 2022. Medically reviewed by Stephen Gans, MD. Elizabeth Scott, PhD, is an author, workshop leader, educator, and award-winning blogger on stress management, positive psychology, relationships, and emotional well-being. A highly sensitive person, HSP, is a neurodivergent individual who is thought to have an increased or deeper central nervous system sensitivity to physical, emotional, or social stimuli. Some refer to this as having sensory processing sensitivity, or SPS for short. While highly sensitive people are sometimes negatively described as being too sensitive, it is a personality trait that brings both strengths and challenges. The term highly sensitive person was first coined by psychologists Elaine Aron and Arthur Aron in the mid-1990s. Elaine Aron published her book, The Highly Sensitive Person, in 1996, and interest in the concept has continued to grow since then. Have you ever been told that you're too sensitive or that you shouldn't think so much, particularly by people who strike you as too insensitive or who you believe should think a little more? You may be a highly sensitive person or HSP. It is important to remember that there is no official highly sensitive person diagnosis, and being an HSP does not mean that you have a mental illness. High sensitivity is a personality trait that involves increased responsiveness to both positive and negative influences. High sensitivity applies across a few different categories. There are several traits or characteristics common to HSPs, according to the researchers who identified this personality trait. Being overwhelmed by sensory stimuli like noisy crowds, bright lights, or uncomfortable clothing. Avoiding violent movies or TV shows because they feel too intense and leave you feeling unsettled. Being deeply moved by beauty, either expressed in art, nature, or the human spirit, or sometimes even a good commercial. Feeling a need for downtime, not just a preference, especially when you have hectic days, needing to retreat to a dark, quiet room. Having a rich and complex inner life, complete with deep thoughts and strong feelings that go without them. The Aarons also developed a highly sensitive person test, or a personality questionnaire, to help people identify themselves as HSPs. It is known as Aaron's Highly Sensitive Persons Scale, HSPS. Highly sensitive people are thought to make up roughly 20% of the general population. It is less common to be a highly sensitive person, and society tends to be built around people who notice a little less and are affected a little less deeply. Highly sensitive people may benefit from finding ways to cope with the stresses they often face. This is true for those who recognize themselves as highly sensitive, as well as those who have a loved one who is more sensitive than the average person. What makes a person highly sensitive likely depends on a variety of factors such as evolution, environment, genetics, and early childhood experiences. High sensitivity exists in at least 100 other species aside from humans. Research suggests that high sensitivity is an evolutionary trait that increases the likelihood of survival because HSPs are on the lookout for potential predators or dangerous situations. Of course, constantly being on guard when there aren't any immediate threats often results in anxiety. Research also shows that a lack of parental warmth growing up may cause a child to develop high sensitivity and carry this trait into adulthood. The same goes for negative early childhood experiences. If you experienced trauma as a child, you may be more likely to become an HSP as an adult. Genetics may contribute to high sensitivity. Specifically, the dopamine system may play a role. It affects personality and may make some people more prone than others to becoming highly sensitive. High sensitivity is also hereditary. There is a higher chance that you will be highly sensitive if high sensitivity runs in your family. In addition, a person's genes may evolve in response to negative early experiences, making them more susceptible to becoming an HSP. The end of part 1. Verywell Mind uses only high-quality sources, including peer-reviewed studies, to support the facts within our articles. Read our editorial process to learn more about how we fact-check and keep our content accurate, reliable, and trustworthy. Verywell Mind sources. Making sense of it all, the impact of sensory processing sensitivity on daily functioning of children. The highly sensitive brain, an fMRI study of sensory processing sensitivity and respond to others' emotions. Contributions of dopamine-related genes and environmental factors to highly sensitive personality. A multi-step neuronal system level approach. Sensory processing sensitivity and its relation to introversion and emotionality. Higher sensory processing sensitivity, introversion, and ectomorphism. New biomarkers for human creativity in developing rural areas. Identification of sensory processing and integration symptom clusters, a preliminary study. Sensory abnormalities in autism spectrum disorders, a focus on the tactile domain from genetic mouse models to the clinic. The relationship between sensory processing sensitivity and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder traits, a spectrum approach. The science of empathy. Reading. Sensory processing sensitivity, a review in the light of the evolution of biological responsibility. The relationships between sensory processing sensitivity, alexithymia, autism, depression, and anxiety. All content on slides is copyrighted by Verywell Mind, author Elizabeth Scott.